Let's talk about some stuff.
Okay.
It's Hugo time.
It is Hugo time.
Yeah, so regular viewers, stroke listeners, stroke whatever the hell, however you're consuming this, will know that subjects will know that I have taken this whole obsession too far with science fiction literature and am a Hugo Award judge.
Yeah.
Which costs about $50 US.
They charge you to do it.
Well, it's a supporting membership of Worldcon, you see. Worldcon's the big convention, and if you go along to that, I'm sure you have a great time. And if you do go along to that, you get to do the voting as well. But you can be a supporting member and not go along to the big thing, which I think is in Finland this year, and still do the online voting for the books and stuff. And I thought, well, get involved, take part and stuff. And last year, it was really good. I had 5 books last year. Some were better than others, obviously, because that's how these things work. But they were all very good. And I voted, and I think I was one of about 3,000 or so. My membership number's 6,000 something this time round. It's really going up and getting more popular this time, unless I booked late. I don't know, but either way, yes. 6 books. There they all are.
There's a lot of interest.
Yeah, I managed also because for some reason I still don't quite understand. They added it. They opened it up to 6 nominees instead of 5 like last time, and they're all typically about 400 or 500 pages each, door stoppers, and you have about 2 months. 2 to 3 months to read them in, I think.
Yeah.
And I've got it all done just about. I was really chugging them though, and I still managed to get 2 more books in for the Hugo show thing we do. So this time I did it again, and I was done with about a week to go, so that's all right. Managed to cram my head full of all sorts of dizzying future visions. And I'm going to talk about them briefly here, and go over why I voted for what.
Okay.
So let's start with this one. This is in reverse order of what I voted, by the way. So no spoilers there.
Did you put them up in order?
No, they're in a random order. So my last place. So I want to start by saying they were all really good.
I should hope so.
Yeah. I mean, this isn't a case of all these ones were terrible and this was the only decent one.
I pretty much hope they were top 6.
They were all very good, and any one of them should be, would be a good winner. But it's a subjective thing.
Is any of them as good as the Graveyard Book?
Yes.
Are any of them as good as
similar.
City in the City?
Oh, don't make me list the whole lot. They're all very good. But I can't compare the plots to each of them. You're confusing me now. It's really hot as well.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about them?
No, yeah. Yeah, see, this is about a gate. It's a boring book about a gate because it's made out of obelisk.
Give it here. Right, so this is book 2 in the Broken Earth, but this is the Obelisk Gate by N.K. Jemisin. Now, she won it last year with the first part of this series. This is the second part in a massive door-stopping. I think it's going to be a quadrilogy. I don't know.
Which means it maxes out at a 5 out of 10.
You can tell there's going to be a lot of them because the number on the back's in numerals, not Roman numerals. It's usually a bad sign. I don't know. So this continues on. This essentially is a post-apocalyptic, very far in the future tale of an Earth that is completely devastated on an extremely routine basis by continual earthquakes. You might remember me talking about it from previous. Yeah. And it's essentially the story of how people live in that world, how they survive, what they do, what it does to their societies, to their relationships, and so on. It follows the heroine of the first book, Essen. And it basically carries on and picks up pretty much at the end of the first book. And it's the same cast of people. It's the same people, and this is probably why I liked it the least out of all the books here, because I just don't like the characters. They're very well written. They're very very well drawn. Very interesting, and it is an interesting book. But it's not a fun book. It's that interesting but not fun thing. And they are all the characters in there are bitter, broken, twisted, jaded people who are constantly being sarcastic and snide at each other. And the main story sort of picks up where Nessun had fetched up amongst a community of similar origins who are like
That's an appendix.
Appendix, yes. Well, it's good to get the world lore in, So he picks up with the story of Essen getting to a community of rogue origins, and these are basically humans who are have a mutation that allows them to, through some kind of magic, control earth tremors and earthquakes. And of course, you get the whole witch thing, pariahs. They're fiercely controlled by the state or stoned to death as children, whatever.
Of course they are.
Yeah, it's that kind of bleak, brutal, bitter kind of world continuing on in here. So she's sort of gotten clear of all of the entanglements of her earlier lives, and now is basically trying to sort of she's been sort of recontacted by her old mentor and sort of recruited to try and tackle the big problems. And we're getting a lot more exposition in here. We start to find out what the big, massive floating obelisks in the sky are all about.
Do they by any chance cause earthquakes?
I'm not saying. I'm trying not to spoiler any of these. See, this is.
Well, I just read the last page. So.
You're spoiling them yourself, yeah. Also, you have a second parallel story with her daughter and husband who escaped at the beginning of the first book, and one of the strands of that first book was her trying to chase them. And we pick up their story, and as they sort of manage to escape and find their way to another community where her daughter gets sort of picked up and trained in her arts as well. It's solid. It's a lot more expository. There's a lot more, and the reason is, and here is all. There's a lot more backstory and explanation of what's gone on in here, which I think people will find satisfying if they found the first one a bit impenetrable and didn't really, hook onto what was going on and why, because not a lot's explained in that one. It is all presented as deliberately mystifying, whereas this one we get a lot more of goings on and so on. I just still can't get like the characters particularly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a testament to her skill to create such consistently bitter and twisted and broken people and tell a whole story.
There is a skill in writing a likeable and unlikable character.
Yeah.
One who you really don't like but still care about.
Well, this is a very subjective thing as well. I mean, some people might really get behind her guts and her drive, and can nothing breaks this woman. She all sorts of crap happens to her, and she just drives on through it and uses her anger as fuel, and that can be a compelling sort of characterisation, but I just found it quite wearying and relentless. I mean, as I say, just because I voted it last doesn't mean to say it's not a good book, and I would be surprised. I mean, my own opinions notwithstanding, I'd be surprised if she got 2 Hugos in a row for 2 parts of a series. That almost never happens.
That's really unlikely.
I mean, I think in memory, Red Mars didn't win, but Green and Blue Mars both won in their respective years. So potentially it could. I don't know. I mean,
well, especially 2 books in 2 years.
Yeah, and a 1 and a 2 in a season. I don't know. I think there might be a bit of a sense of you've had your turn. Yeah. I don't know.
Also, if you win for 1 and 2, do you then not win for 3? Does everyone say that 3's no good?
Well, it definitely ends on and the adventure continues. There is going to be a third. I don't know how many are planned. So we'll see. Many. Yeah, I don't know. You're not a big fan of series work, so
I like to know it's going to have an end before I start.
You want some sort of definite commitment, yeah.
I don't want something that's going to last the rest of my life. Thank you very much.
On to my 5th place then. This is All the Birds in the Sky by Charlie Jane Anders. So that's
okay. Yeah.
This is a contemporary tale of 2 misfit children who meet as 6-year-olds. He is a
ghost.
No. He's a mad scientist who manages to download plans off the internet and at the age of 6 build a wristwatch that can jump him 2 minutes forward in time. Essentially builds himself a time machine.
Time turner.
Yeah, and she goes out into the woods at age 6 and discovers that she understands the language of birds.
Okay.
So you get this quite sweet little setup where there's 2 children who are basically quite odd and misfits, and
someone's aiming for a film.
You're getting this real harsh level of incongruously abusive parental neglect and abuse going on through it. Not actual beatings and stuff, but the stuff these children get put through by their siblings and parents. It almost borders on the kind of sort of Roald Dahl kind of sort of fairy tale.
So their biological parents are alive?
No, these are different children, different families. They're just friends.
Both of them.
Yeah.
Well, that's wrong because kids' books, the children's parents have to be dead.
But you're getting this, but it's not really played for comedy or laughs. It's played in quite a contemporary, realistic sort of setting. So you're thinking, okay, no, I can't laugh at this because this is actually happening. Anyway, so they grow up and grow apart, and then they meet again when they're young adults, I don't know, in their 20s or whatever. And she's now a fully fledged member of the occult circle or whatever, and he's like the wunderkind of some Silicon Valley startup, and and it is essentially a tale of magic versus science.
Okay.
And told through a kind of love story, relationship, will they, won't they kind of thing going all the way through. And it is charming and it is sweetly done, but it is so jumpy as well. It really sort of zaps around the place. It doesn't really establish it establishes a kind of just about their world lore behind it all. The business with training of the witches and stuff, and how he got into all his lab work and what he's working on and stuff. And it sort of drives towards a kind of apocalyptic culmination, and I don't want to spoil the ending at all.
It sets up for a sequel.
No, I don't know. I didn't think it said sequel to me, the end, but I found the end a bit disappointing, really. Underwhelming a little. And yeah, I mean, I suppose the strength in this is the relationship is really well told. You know, it's that, you know, best friends becoming girlfriend, boyfriend, but not, you know, that kind of thing. And obviously I'm an emotional dead inside cripple, so I don't really understand that kind of biological stuff. But this was a good good accounting. It felt believable, the relationship, but the sort of everything going on around it jumps around so much, and there's so much sort of bonkers. Oh, and now suddenly they're in Siberia blowing up like an oil pipeline, and what now? Hang, where's this giant scorpion robot tank thing come from? You know, it's just it keeps pulling stuff out of thin air to sort of propel itself along, and it makes you sort of, and yet at the same time you've got this real quite in-depth examination of ostracisation. I mean, the phase where they're at effectively high school or whatever, you know, college, when they're sort of 16 or so, and just the horrific abuse they're getting from like parents and school friends, because obviously they're not the cool kids. They are, you know, the reason they are friends a lot of the way through the book is because no one else will sit with them at lunchtime. It's that kind of relationship built on sort of solidarity of victimhood, if nothing else. And I don't know, there's a lot of interesting ideas in there, but it just felt a bit, I don't know, gallopy and a bit sort of out of thin air a lot of the time. And I like the relationship and I like the characters. It's almost the opposite problem of the Obelisk Gate there. The Obelisk Gate has got some fantastic world building, but the characters and the people are just profoundly unlikable. It's almost the opposite problem in here. You know, the characters I really wanted them to get, you know, succeed and get on and yeah, end up together and stuff, but just everything else going on around them at whatever rate, and you know, just sudden arbitrary reasons why you can't do this, and the magic works like this all of a sudden, and it's like, oh, okay, whatever, you know. And you find that getting in the way of, you know, what's essentially just a contemporary love story, which made me wonder, did it need to be a science fiction contemporary love story? But then that is an angle, certainly. I don't know, I liked it, but not as much as all the others, obviously. So let's move on. So number 4 on my list is, yes, here we go.
No, we have to look at
I know, I wrote them down in case I forgot. So, To Like the Lightning by Ada Palmer. This is an interesting one. This is a kind of utopian contemporary fiction thing, sort of set in the year 2700 or something like that.
How's that contemporary fiction?
Well, it's contemporary, well, future from now. It's not an invented future. Okay. It's like, you know, this world moved forward. And it's a really odd one, this. I mean, I've seen it compared to a lot of Gene Wolfe's stuff, and some, not a bad thing. Particularly Book of the Long Sun. It's felt very familiar with that. So it's basically a futuristic society where nations and
I'm not going to read the last pages, so I might read it.
Nations and religions religions in particular have been outlawed after the church wars, a thing which happened in the past. And basically 3 people talking about the same religion in one place is considered a church and is outlawed. So now we have this, and also they also don't they don't use gendered pronouns, because that's bad as well. Yeah, so pretty much everyone in the story uses the word they or them to talk about everyone else.
Can I guess? Are the puppies going to be upset about this book?
There's a lot in there that might upset traditional rocket gun and laser spaceships sci-fi fans. Yes. Have a look at that front plate there. I don't know if you want to hold it up to the camera. I don't know if you can even see it. The whole thing is written in the style of an 18th century Renaissance novel, including like sort of almost Dickensian front plate on the front with the right type, with the typography and everything. It's got some bad sex in there, I think. Oh God, yes, it has at the back. Yeah. And it's got
trigger warnings bit at the start.
It's that kind of book. It's a very playful book. I think this may be the anti-puppy entry, perhaps, but. So it's this tale. It's being told in first person by a chap called Mycroft Canner, who from the start will totally understand if you recognise his name and don't want anything to do with it. So you got this whole thing building through with who is Mycroft Canner and why does he think we should be so terrified and abhorrent of him? He's writing this history. And he considers himself a bit of a weirdo and deviant by using his and her pronouns through just to make life easier for a reader of the future. And it's so you got I don't know. You got two different strands going through. One is the appearance of in a little. So everyone lives in these sort of communes. They don't have the traditional families anymore. There's no such thing as nations. They all live in these organisations called hives, and there's like basically 7 major. It's very much like Alpha Centauri. You know, the factions in there where we don't have nations anymore. It's all based. Everyone's divided themselves up on ideological lines that span the entire world. The entire world is.
We have progressed beyond this and invented something worse.
Yeah, exactly. It's that kind of thing. Yeah. So. The whole world is connected by extremely fast and reliable flying cars, and that becomes quite pivotal because a lot of the action happens around the sort of little commune whose job it is to run the flying car system.
Uber.
Well, yeah, the sort of future Uber, whatever. And so on one strand, one of the members of that family has discovered a child who into a world where religion is outlawed and everyone basically has their own personal psychotherapist instead of a chaplain or confessor anymore. Suddenly a child turns up who can do literal miracles.
Okay.
Actual physical magic type miracles. And so they're all trying to hide him and raise him before, the authorities can get to him and change his, impress upon him using his miracles for evil and so on. So there's that whole thing going through. And that was the bit I was quite interested in. That was the fascinating sci-fi story. But then also you got this massive strand of sort of I don't know, not espionage perhaps, but sort of, whodunit detective stuff going on with the theft of something called a 710 list. Each of these hives, big newspapers, produces something called the 710 list, which is a list of 10 names. The first 7 are just basically the heads of each of the hives, and the last 3 are just 3 other people. And those are it's their who's who list of who's the most influential people in our society. And by some weird arcane thing I didn't quite follow, these lists then have a profound sociological impact on the stability of society, because if someone's hot or not, then apparently that can tumble empires or something. And one of these lists gets stolen, and that kicks off this massive sort of almost soap opera-esque thing that went on most of the way through the book, involving the heads of all these different hives, who all happen to be on first name terms and all pally and half sisters and stepwives and stuff with each other and stuff, and it all got very incestuous. And I don't know, the book spent so much time sort of going on and on about the sort of political structure of this future world, which was interesting in a way, but didn't make for that great a narrative, and not nearly enough time to looking at Bridger, the kid who has got the miracle powers. I mean, as an example, his miracle powers, he managed to bring some army men to life. And these little plastic toy soldier army men that they found in a rubbish heap from hundreds of years ago, brought back to life, and one of them, the Major, becomes quite an important character in this book, acting as a kind of father figure for the Bridger character. Basically, you can make things come to life, literal, and then they have a concept of a no-go bag. Basically, Bridger is being taught to put certain things in the bag and never bring them back to life. Things like atomic bombs, that kind of thing. How do you educate a 6-year-old child how to not kill everyone with the power to bring whatever they can imagine to life for reality? And that was interesting. I'd really like to have seen that explored in more detail. This thing sets itself up as the first book in quite a few. I think 4 books was mentioned. I don't know. But I just found the meandering and the examination. Normally, I'm really into the world building and stuff, but it was we've got this almost Alpha Centauri like future society driven by ideology, not nation, not where you're born. You sign up to join each of these different factions, and the factions represent different things. Like the humanist faction are well into their sports and personal prowess and so on. It's that kind of thing. I mean, one of the factions was the Mitsubishi faction. Literally the Mitsubishi company ends up hundreds of years in the future becoming one of the most powerful landowners and rental landlords in the world, and it's how these things interact and how they came about, and that was quite interesting. But then it was just so drilled in on the sort of personal people aspect of it all. But then also you got this third strand with who and what is Mycroft, and the narrator of the book turns out, well, I don't want to spoil anything, but there's a lot of interesting sort of revelations about the narrator of the book himself as well, which is quite interesting, but also quite harsh in places. So I can't wait for the end of it going, that's all. I don't know really, which is why I've sort of got it in the middle there, not my 4th favourite.
Do you think it suffers a lot from not being a self-contained, fully is going to continue story?
Yes, because more than any other of these book X out of however many ones, and there's quite a few in here actually, this one in particular spends almost the entire 440 pages setting up something amazing and then just not really delivering
Yeah,
them.
see, that's a problem.
And I don't know if that was a deliberate thing or whether you just if you genuinely have a really long story to tell that is justifiably that good and that long, then obviously you can't do it in one tome because it would be about that thick, and people wouldn't be able to pick it up. Literally the physical medium starts to become an issue at that point, which is why you get trilogies and so on. And sometimes they're justified and sometimes they're not. And this is clearly one that has been designed as a whatever elegy from the get-go. It's not we'll see how the first book goes and then we'll throw out a few more. This is clearly a very long story that's just taking a very long time to tell, and I find myself a bit fascinated. I sort of want to know what happens next, but I don't know.
Yeah.
But I just that it spends way too much time in the sort of almost I use the phrase soap opera literally. This whole business with the rulers of all these factions going to little soirees and gossiping at each other, and who's now we need to have a meeting to sort out this, that, and the other, and put someone on the case. And it's almost like it's almost deliberately subverting how utopian its society is by just repeatedly showing how incestuous the leadership is, and how sort of hereditary and not what it says it is at all. Perhaps that's on purpose. In which case it's very clever, but also a bit baffling. I don't know. So it's my fault. Third favourite.
Halfway there.
Yeah, Nine Fox Gambit. New one. Yoon-Ha Lee's Nine Fox Gambit.
You're making the set wobble.
Oh,
I'm not Doctor Who.
This is a massive speculative military sci-fi future thing.
Yeah.
Set in.
I like it.
The Hexarchate.
It looks brilliant.
I can't even pronounce the things. Yeah, it's got explosions on the cover.
No, turn it sideways.
It's quite thin.
Yeah.
It's quite thin. You like short books, don't you? This was 300 pages or so.
That's good.
Doesn't outstay its welcome at all.
Ideal,
So
then.
this follows the story of...
Part one of how many?
Well, that's the thing. It does set up for a cliffhanger. They'll probably will. There is another one actually. I think Nick Soy was talking about it on our Slack books chat. If you're well into the books in a nerdy fashion like I am, check our Slack thing out. We've got a special side channel for books.
Do we?
Yes.
Okay.
You obviously not. No, you don't do book.
No one's invited me.
No, it's there. I only learnt about it 2 weeks ago. Apparently, it's been there for a year.
Has anyone been in there chatting?
Yeah. As I was scrolling back, and apparently they did wonder why I hadn't said anything.
Do you think maybe we've lost control?
It's going well. Yeah, it's gone out of control. Anyway, Nine Fox Gambit. I like this one a lot. So this follows Captain Kel Cheris, and she's like a military infantry commander, sort of Starship Troopers style, and it opens with her leading an assault on a planetary surface, hell warscape type thing, and almost immediately what you're seeing is it's insane level of maths turned in weaponized mathematics of a sort of quantum super future.
Okay.
The whole thing revolves around something they call the High Calendar.
Yeah.
Now, if enough people celebrate the right kinds of bank holidays the right way together in the right place, it does something weird to space and time, and you can design all kinds of cool futuristic swords and force fields and weapons.
That actually explains 1997.
It does indeed, yes. So basically, you've got this basically sufficiently advanced magic going on all the way through, with these kinds of weird kind of mathematical attacks based on this high calendar.
Yeah.
And this society is divided into 6 castes, and they each fulfil their function. And I can't remember which one this is. The Kells. The Kells are the sort of soldiers, and she's one of them. There's a ruling caste and a scheming espionage caste and so on, and it all fits together. Caste, is it? Caste? I never know. Caste? Yeah, whatever. No, but caste doesn't have an E. So how do people know which one I'm saying?
Casty.
Anyway, yes, I can't. No, it's gone again.
You're talking about the cast?
Yes. So this society all functions and fits together as long as everybody follows the right kinds of calendar and the right kinds of observances. And if enough people believe a thing, it all happens and becomes real. And their hyperdrives are based on this. All their tech is based on this. So it becomes really important that you celebrate the right bank holidays. And if you don't, you decide you come up with a whole load of different bank holidays. And I'm using bank holidays. The whole different calendar, not the high calendar. That's regarded as a heretical calendar.
Okay.
And punished really, really brutally by invasions, murder, death, etc. And they do this because if somebody starts mucking around with the clap your hands and it all, will believe it all the same thing.
Then your TV stops working.
Well, your hyperdrive stops working, your society collapses. So they take a pretty dim view of other calendars.
I can get behind that.
Yeah. It's almost it's brutal but justifiable in context as told through the book. So she's fighting a bunch of heretics on this planet, and she comes up with some slightly unorthodox box mathematics because some people in a command basically the soldiers are trained with formation instinct, which essentially is brainwashing to follow orders. But if that breaks down and they don't follow orders correctly, they're not lined up in the right pattern. So a lot of the infantry formations or the Starfleet, the space battles rely on the ships being in very precise positions relating to each other because of, again, this weird high calendar thing. So if someone's out of formation, the whole thing falls apart, jeopardises everyone. So she just decides, right, we'll do something different, and comes up with a slightly heretical way to get around the problem and wins the day. But, of course, now she's a kind of maverick officer, expendable. So she's taken off duty and told to, and basically promoted about 15 ranks up to general and told to deal with the Fortress of Scattered Needles, basically a massive stronghold of heresy. And to do so, she's partnered up with a kind of weird mind state ghost thing of an old general who went mad and killed everyone on both sides of his most famous engagement. And they go off to do lots of cool calendar magic maths and to try and retake this fortress. And it sounds pretty, sort of Starship Troopers, but there's a lot of subtlety in it. The character of Cheris is very well written. Very likeable, which goes a long way with me because I'm quite simple. I think it's nice to like the people you're rooting for. But then you got this Shuas Jedao, who's basically this sort of, again, weird future mathematical magic. He's been incarcerated in digital form and then uploaded into her mind as a kind of advisor that only she can see. But he is obviously a mass murderer as well. So you got this weird sort of almost Silence of the Lambs sort of Clarice and Hannibal thing going on there, which is very well told actually. I mean, it's not as simple as he's a frothing maniac. He's a subtle character and he's obviously got some weird plans of his own going on. And is he going to help her because he's riding along in her brain, as it were. And so that kind of thing adds an interesting dimension to it all. And just, the likeable characters and the interesting, bizarre, bonkers mathematical magic, which I just really found very entertaining, very enjoyable. As you say, short to the point, is written, Starship Troopers meets Apocalypse Now they put Kurtz in charge, apparently. Yeah, it's a fairly good assessment from Stephen Baxter there on the back. It's accessible, interesting. I mean, there's a lot of bonkers maths in there that you're not even meant to understand. I mean, how can a high calendar even possibly work? But if you roll with it, if you take it, as read, it works within its own inconsistent story. Though.
It does sound like it's taken lots and lots of little bits out of 40k and put them all together.
There's bits of that
because the Orc technology works by the Orcs believe it works. The whole heresy thing, but then again, saying you've taken lots and lots of things out of 40k is also saying you've just taken lots and lots of things out of everything else.
Yeah. No, I liked it. I mean, it does set up at the end for a cliffhanger, and the adventure continues. I think the other one, the next one is out, so I might actually go and look at that on my own, just for pleasure, not to try and do this weird bet for myself. Year. Well, I don't know. I can see it doing well. Yoon Ha Lee, I don't think I've seen anything else of Yoon's work. Certainly not on any previous nomination list, so it could be an interesting debut. Could do well. I don't know. We'll see. But it depends. I mean, that's got a reasonable puppy factor, with a sort of military sci-fi. But it's the character's a woman for a start, and it's just she's really well written, interesting, and seeing how she copes with this sudden elevation well out of her depth and so on is quite interesting. And how little quirks to her character as well. It's her basic respect for the servitor droids. The servitors are essentially their own little robot species of like birds and things that go around doing stuff on the. And she invites some of them around to watch soap operas with sometimes. And I just found that great. That's brilliant. But so I like that a lot. That's good. Okay, so that's number 3. Number 2. It's Close and Common Orbit by Becky Chambers. I really like this one. It's again another sort of future sci-fi thing. It's basically two stories. So it's a cold open, and I think it might be a sequel to A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, which might have been nominated previously. I don't know anything about it, and so I dropped straight in on book 2, which now that usually is usually a Kiss of Death. I mean, the Obelisk Gate, fair enough. I happened to have read the first one for last year's thing, but this time I've just dropped straight in. But it's self-contained. it opens with an AI kit. So basically a robot shell for an AI. These things, the very first thing it opens with is a preface noting how illegal it is for AIs to have mobile human-style kits. They've got AIs can only exist in the housings like ships or factories or whatever they've been putting. Yeah, well, apparently just before the start of this book, the ship got blown up or something, so the AI downloaded itself into a shell that the ship's engineer, a woman called Pepper, managed to find and prepare and get her out on a shuttle, and it opens there. And what you've got essentially is the AI, who was initially called Lovelace, and takes a different name as she goes through. It's her coming to terms with life as a limited humanoid type entity, and that is quite interesting because this is an AI who's designed to monitor ship systems. I mean, you've got all sorts of quirks, like she's not comfortable unless she's stood on a stool and her head's wedged into the back corner of a room, because normally she looks at rooms through corner cameras, kind of thing. And when the first time she's in a crowded market, she almost goes insane because she's trying to process everything she sees around her, because her job is to monitor all the people under her care and so on. And it's that sort of continual trying to reconcile her basic nature with her new life, continued existence, and the sort of the scrapes she gets into there. And Pepper's sort of offers her a place to stay, and tries to help her out and tries to look after her, try essentially become a parent in a way. And that's the sort of relationship that develops. Pepper as the mother with Lovelace as a kind of sort of surrogate child, and it's a really touching relationship that sort of develops between the two, and as it goes through, as she gets more and more unravelled by the sort of its fundamental incongruity of, I don't know, body dissonance, is it dysmorphia? I can't remember, whatever the term is. And alongside that, you've got this second story, which is Pepper herself and her childhood. And it turns out that Pepper herself was actually a clone child from a factory planet who'd managed to escape. It's some pretty brutal and gruesome scenes early on. This machine society uses human children as a slave labour force, cloning because they're good, small hands, whatever. Yeah. There's an accident in the factory, and her world. She only knows the factory, and the factory gets smashed open, and she manages to escape through into this massive junk heap. Finds a crashed shuttle with a sort of remnants of an AI personality on that shuttle, and that shuttle offers the AI in the shuttle offers her sanctuary. And what you end up with is a kind of mirrored parallel story running through, with the AI who's called Owl raising this clone child who's only been taught enough to be able to do machine work from the age of like 6 up to about sort of 20 or so, and their attempts to try and escape from this horrific world and out to main civilization. So these two stories running side by side, and it is essentially about mothers and daughters, but with the quirk, obviously, the one story the AI is the child, the other story run alongside the AI is the mother, and they sort of come together at the end, and it's really elegantly told, really well crafted, and again likable, well fleshed out characters. The world building, I don't know how much I missed from not having read the first one. A lot of it was just word salad names, such and such space station, such and such empire, but none of it seemed to matter at all. Surprisingly, it doesn't seem to matter that I hadn't read the first one. I probably will go and read it now anyway, because I'm quite a fan of the author now.
That's quite good then.
I like this a lot, very well told, and it got me in the feels at the end there. So and since I am dead inside, that's no mean feat, exactly. So I like that a lot,
just not quite enough.
My second favourite. So here we go. It's Cixin Liu, Death's End. This is the third book in a trilogy, and it's happened to have been the biggest as well. The others were a respectable 3 to 400. This was 700. Wow. This was the 7 Eves of this year. So
why does it go halfway through and then run out of ideas?
No, this is fantastic. I couldn't stop reading this cover to cover. The first book is I forgot the name now. It's gone. Death's End. 3-body problem. Three Body Problem, which was we'll probably cover that on the show at some point, because it was a previous Hugo winner of 2013, maybe somewhere around there, 14, 15, one of those. A couple of years ago. Yeah, that was I think it was the chap's debut novel, and went down very well. And that was a fantastic. I love that. I love that one because of it's real sort of interesting examination of the Chinese Cultural Revolution, which I just never come across in my normal day-to-day life before. But also the sort of sweeping. It's essentially about Fermi's paradox. This series, the whole series, Fermi's paradox. Where is everybody? So the universe is really, really old. Even at sublight travel speeds, you should be able to get to the nearest star in 50,000 years. The universe is 13 billion years old. Anyone who can get into space should have covered almost all of it by now, and we should see them everywhere. Why not? Why don't we? And there's a lot of answers to that. Go look it up on Wikipedia. It's a fascinating article, that, actually, Fermi's Paradox on Wikipedia. But this one takes the Alastair Reynolds style approach to why are we not being visited? Where is everybody?
Yeah.
And the core tenet and fundamental thing of the Dark Forest, which is the middle one, which I haven't read, but I had to go and look at a Wikipedia summary of, just so I could have the context for this, is that the reason that there's no one, we don't see anyone out there is because they're all being quiet, because anyone who makes a noise gets destroyed.
Oh, okay.
Annihilating a stellar civilization is trivially easy by any other stellar civilization. So the only ones who survive out in the big, dark, scary cosmos, the Dark Forest, are the ones who don't make any noises at all.
Or the ones who destroy everyone else.
Yeah, and obviously at the start, at the end of Three-Body Problem, a particularly horrifically abused and disgruntled Chinese astrophysicist decides to really kick our whole civilization in the nuts by using the sun as a kind of amplifier and sending out a "here we are, come and get us" signal, basically because she's just so fed up with her fellow human beings that she wants the aliens to intervene, not fully understanding that the aliens
how the intervention's going to play out.
Exactly. And so from the end of that book, the Trisolarian civilization at Alpha Centauri, who basically live on a planet that goes around 3 different stars and gives them all sorts of problems developing, have been on the way. Basically, the end of that book sets a 400-year timer on the invasion from another star system by a highly advanced civilization. And of course, to stop that, they send these things called sophons, which basically are massive supercomputers folded from 2 dimensions into 3 dimensions to become a subatomic particle. They're basically a pair of malevolent photons who basically spend that intervening 400 years zooming around the Earth at instantaneous speed, screwing up all particle physics experiments. Okay. Which effectively blocks human progress for 400 years, so that we don't get the jump on them by the time they get. Yeah, if you can pull it off, it's quite it makes sense. Anyways, the Dark Forest is basically a massive, more or less self-contained story about how we come up with a solution to that, and that sort of dovetails into here a bit. But this does work as a standalone thing as well. We end up with, so basically, Cheng Xin is an aerospace engineer for the 21st century, and humans have hibernation technology, mostly as a plot device. She basically starts off in the 21st century and then spends the rest of the book sort of being put to sleep and visiting future parts of what's essentially a massive grand tale. It's in the scale of Arthur C. Clarke. It's got that Alastair Reynolds style sweeping scope to it all. There's a huge space soap opera, and it is the story of mankind and the our survival in a hugely hostile and aggressive cosmos. And I mean, you'd think 700 pages that'd be full of filler and stuff.
Yes. It actually sounds interesting.
There's not many wasted chapters in here at all.
Do you want to read the quotes from the cover?
Yes.
No, from the front cover.
From the front cover.
The quotes by other authors.
A unique blend of scientific and philosophical speculation, conspiracy theory and cosmology by George R.R. Martin.
Yeah.
Wildly imaginative, really interesting. Barack Obama. He's not a sci-fi author. What's he doing on there? Bloody hell.
Yeah, it's a weird pair.
So, yeah, basically, it has that almost 2001 Space Odyssey, sort of Arthur C. Clarke, vast scope to it all, but there's this real dark tinge to it as well. I mean, Clarke is generally quite optimistic in most of his stuff. The aliens are out there, but they're generally quite benevolent, godlike figures who want to see it all work. Yeah. Whereas he melds that with Alastair Reynolds' "oh my god, the universe is full of technological cosmic horrors and they're all going to kill us."
Yeah, I relate to it.
Put together, and he sort of walks somewhere down the middle with this, and it's just a fantastic sort of. I mean, it's got a map in the front, a map of eras, a map of timescales.
I can approve of that particular map.
It starts in the present and finishes in the year 1906416. So there's it is a huge epic sweep. There's no end. There's not going to be a fourth one because it does finish quite conclusively.
Okay.
But
we shall mourn the earth.
Well, I'm not going to say anything.
No.
But definitely worth it, and particularly, obviously, if you enjoyed the previous two, then and I did enjoy the first one. I need to go and get the second one now. Yeah. Second one didn't come up in the years I was participating, which was last year, so I didn't get a chance to get to it. So much to read, but no, I just really liked it all the way through.
I shall have to give those three I read.
So that's my personal favourite, Death's End by Xixin Liu. And we'll have to see what the actual... I've been to the website, I had my voters pack and stuff. Yeah. I've put me rankings on the website, and now we just have to wait. I think mid-August, we'll see the final results. Yeah. I'll probably mention them on the show, but won't go into too vast detail over it all. But it'll be interesting to see if I completely misjudge the mood of everyone else like I did last time. Yeah. So, but there we go. I probably ought to stop banging on about books for a bit. So yes, I did it! Hooray! I'm a productive member of the sci-fi community or something. Yeah. And I didn't have time to do the films. I only saw about half of them.
What did you think of the films you saw?
Arrival was very good. That was my favourite. I bought Deadpool and I haven't watched it yet. Apparently it's very good. I know. I will have to get around to it. Rogue One was very good. My favourite of the Star Wars films, frankly.
Yes, yeah. I love
Star Wars for grown-ups. So and to be honest, I'm quite looking forward to just a Dan Brown or just watching some one show for a bit. Just let myself go, unwind. Actually, no, because we're doing Ringworld for the next book podcast. So I've read that before. It's very good, and I'm looking forward to it again.
I've read a Halo book. I know how they end.